Hello, everyone. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to this webinar on behalf of the TEFL org. My name is Carl. I'm a teacher trainer. I'm an online teacher. I'm a face-to-face teacher, although I don't do as much of that now as I used to. I mainly work now in Northern Ireland, but in the past, I have been lucky enough to have taught abroad in places such as China, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Iraq, a few others as well there on the list. And I host this live webinar where I can answer your questions about teaching English as a foreign language. The topic of today's webinar is Latin America, which is basically anywhere south even of the United States of America. So, looking at Central America and looking at South America. Especially, so I'm going to talk a bit about teaching over there, what it might involve, what you might need, what you might expect, maybe some places to go to that you might have thought about going or have not thought about going. Please let us know where you are in the world, because this is a live webinar. You might find you've got a TEFL friend around the corner from you who you can throw ideas off. You might also find someone that you already know who's watching this webinar. Who knows? But please say hello, and also please get your questions in, because the sooner you get your question in, the more likely I am to answer it. People that leave their questions till the very last minute tend to not get their questions answered. So let me just get this PowerPoint up here about teaching English in Latin America. There we go. Thank you for the hellos coming in. Like I see them all coming in. Hi, Tim. Hi, David. Hi, Rick. Hi, all the others as well. Thank you. Right. Teaching English in Latin America. So what countries TEFL in Latin America? So basically, what countries can you go to and work as a TEFL teacher in Latin America? Now, all of them will have some sort of TEFL industry. So I, for example, saw a job advertised semi-recently, a couple of months ago, in Venezuela. And Venezuela has sort of some issues, because there are parts of South and Central America which does have, sort of high crime, does have some political instability, that kind of thing. But actually, there are still roles available in most of Central and South America. Now, there are obviously some countries, especially sort of in Central America, that speak pretty good level of English, or sort of English is almost a native language. They don't really have a TEFL industry in the same extent that you would find in some of the other South American, Central American countries. But they will still have people there, for example, teaching IELTS, who want to get the IELTS test passed so they can get to another country to study, that kind of thing. So there are some sort of TEFL industry in most, if not all, of the countries. Now, but the main ones where you will find work are these ones here. Okay. Now, I'm going to go to some of these in a bit more detail. Not all of them, but some of these. Some of them you've probably thought about going to before. Some of the others, maybe Belize, Peru, Ecuador, you haven't thought about going to. But these are definitely probably the main ones where they have the most jobs and they have the most students available. Okay, so those are sort of some of the ones that you might want to start looking at first of all. Right. Now, what do you need in order to go to Latin America? So the key thing is a 120-hour TEFL certificate. So this is a certificate from companies such as our own, where you learn online how to be a teacher. It takes about 120 hours. You can show that certificate, and there you go. You can hopefully get some jobs with it. Now, the next thing about Latin America is you maybe need a degree. There are countries there which they don't really care so much about degrees. It's actually one of the better regions of the world to go to if you don't have a 3-year or a 4-year degree. The degree could be in any subject. It doesn't have to be a degree in linguistics. It doesn't have to be a degree in English. I'm going to show you on the next slide the countries that do require degrees in order to go there. Now, degrees help. If you're applying for jobs, if you've got a degree, it does help. But Latin America is one of the best regions to go if you don't have a degree. Now, you need to generally be any age. Now, that might sound a bit strange because everybody is at any age. But again, Latin America is one of the better regions to go to if you are in your golden years of teaching. You're sort of 60 years and over. Europe is another good region if you've got an EU passport, but Asia can be difficult for this kind of thing. So Latin America is one of the regions to think about if you are sort of 60 plus and you're looking to go abroad and TEFL. Now, you will need to have a criminal record check to check that you haven't got any criminal convictions. And you will probably, to get the full visa for some of these countries, and I'm going to talk a bit about visas because the visa situation in Central America and South America is different. But to get a full visa, you might need to go for a medical check. This medical check tends to be a HIV/AIDS test, sometimes a TB test, and sometimes they do a drug test, but the drug test isn't that common generally in this region. Right. So those are the things you're going to need. Now, not all of them will. Not every visa will require these, but it's a good idea to have had these basically, or to do them once you're over there. So these are the countries that require a degree. So in order to get a work visa for these countries from abroad, you need to have a 3 or a 4 year degree. Now, if you look at this list, some of these are probably not the most common of places to go to. But a place like Chile tends to be at the higher wage end in Latin America. Belize tends to have some good jobs going. Peru as well. Now, the others, yes, there is TEFL work, but you won't see lots of it advertised. And it might not be high on your list of places to go to. But if you think of places like Brazil, Argentina, these do not require a degree in order to get a job as a TEFL teacher, but having a degree does help. Right, so my first thoughts about going to Latin America. You will not see lots of job adverts. So you go to somewhere like our website, TEFL.org, you look at our job center, you will see jobs, lots of jobs on there for Asia, you see some for Europe, you see some for the Middle East. You will not see lots advertised for Latin America. The same with websites such as eslcafe.com. You will not see lots and lots of Central and South American jobs advertised there. The reason being is it's a poorer region than a good chunks of the world. So they don't often pay for flights for people to go from your home country to there. They quite like to, for visa situations, have people that are already in the country. So don't think there are none. You will see jobs for places like Mexico, Costa Rica, you might see jobs, but generally on the whole, you won't see lots and lots of jobs advertised. There is lots of in-country hiring that goes on here. There's also lots of freelance work that happens in this region. So again, that wouldn't be advertised. There are some, however, if you keep looking, if you really don't want to go to this region without a job already secured, then you will see some advertised, but it might take a while for you to find. Okay. Work in this region is very casual compared to Asia, where you get like a 2-year contract or a 1-year contract where you're guaranteed work for that year or 2 years. Latin America is not really like that. They tend to sort of just pay you for a term, and then if they've got enough students, if they liked you, the school, they'll take you on for another term. The work is very, very casual. And some people like that. Some people do not like that. In Latin America, there's a wide range of wages and a wide range of cost of living. It's really, there's some very poor countries there, but there's also sort of countries such as Uruguay where there's quite a bit of money around. And this obviously makes a big, big difference to sort of how you want to live. Now, last thing to think about, I said about how Latin America is quite good for people without a degree to get some TEFL work in. It's also quite good for non-native speakers. They don't seem to have the wide requirements of, being from a English-speaking country in order to get a visa to TEFL, which happens in a lot of Asia. So something to be aware of. If you declare yourself as a non-native speaker, you might be able to get work there. You will probably have to prove your level of English. That's all. You might have to take an IELTS test, a Trinity test, a Cambridge test in order to prove your level of English. But that's the same for a lot of good chunks of the world. David, thank you for your question. Please, any more questions, do get them in. I'm going to get to them at the end of this webinar. Right, the first place I want to talk about is Argentina, mainly because it's quite a popular destination. We get asked a lot about it here at TEFL.org. So it is quite popular. Good and bad side of that is you are likely to not be alone in a school that you go and work at. Other thing, there's probably quite a few jobs there. The downside is that sometimes there can be a bit of competition for jobs. Quite a lot of work in language schools. There's also work in like the public and private school system, and also in universities, but a big chunk of the work is in language schools. These are private language schools where you would teach to kids, or you would teach general English to adults, or you teach maybe business English or exam English. There is lots, however, of freelance work in Argentina. If you go there, you might find that you can find your own students and you can live pretty well off that compared to going to work for a school. Okay. Now, you can get work on a tourist visa. So schools, if you do some research into Argentina, and we have pages about destinations, I'll show you how to look that up in a minute, or Alan, who's running the chat, might put them in for us. You can get work on a tourist visa. So you go into Argentina on a tourist visa, not a work visa. And a lot of schools are quite happy with dealing with you like that. And you might be fine. I know plenty of people around the world that do this. But the downside of that is you are not legally there to work. You're legally there to be a tourist. So if something goes wrong, if a school doesn't pay you, something like that, which is quite rarely happens, to be honest, if that sort of thing happens, then you might not have a legal leg to stand on. The other thing, with the positive side of that is, if you're on a tourist visa, say like it's a 3-month tourist visa, you've done your 3 months, you're in Buenos Aires, you can then get a bus to Chile, you can get a bus to Brazil, you can get a bus to Uruguay, go to the embassy there, you can renew it, then you can go back, and you've sort of had a weekend in Iguazu Falls or somewhere, gone on the Brazil side, and then you've had a look around. It's really good fun. You've had a really good weekend. You then come back, you get another 90 days. So it can be fun, but you got to be careful. Weigh it up, but actually it happens more than you think it does. Argentinian economy is very up and down, like big chunks of South and Central America, to be honest. I mean, everywhere at the moment, the economy is fluctuating a lot, but Argentina has definitely had some massive ups and downs, and that's something to be aware of if you're going to go over there. Right, Mexico. I think there's probably more adverts that you see for Mexico than you do for other countries. There's not loads and loads of jobs for Mexico advertised to people who aren't in Mexico, but there are definitely quite a few out there. But they would advertise, maybe comes from the UK, come from America, come from Asia, wherever you are, to Mexico. You can secure the job before you go. They might not pay your flights. They sometimes do, but they might not pay your flights. But they still probably most keen to get people that are already in the country. So you're in Mexico City, you Google language schools, you go knock on the door of a language school, you say, hey, I've got my 120-hour TEFL degree, I've taught a bit here. They might give you a job interview there, and you might get some work. That's the sort of thing that they tend to like. Mexico is one of the easiest places in this region to get a work visa. Once you're in there on a tourist visa, you find a bit of work, they can then convert it to a work visa. You're there legally, you probably feel a bit more secure, that kind of thing. So it's one of the easier regions to do that. Mexico has a wide range of different jobs, from teaching kids in language schools all the way up to teaching at universities. My wife is a TEFL teacher, and one of her first jobs was teaching in a university in Mexico. They paid her accommodation, this kind of thing. This was a few years back now, but she really loved it. She had great fun and great experiences there. So there is a big wide range of jobs in Mexico. Schools often also have lots of work, especially private language schools. You tend to not worry about how much work you're going to have this term, and then if you're good, they will take you on the following term. There seems to be quite a lot of work in Mexico. Right, Costa Rica, Central America, a beautiful place, very touristy. It's quite fashionable to go to. But my one piece of advice for there is to check the cost of living carefully. If you're anywhere near sort of the tourist region, it can be quite expensive for flats, and is your wage going to cover it? That kind of thing, you got to be careful. Most work is for people already in the country. Again, there's not that many jobs advertised. Now, you do see volunteer jobs advertised for Costa Rica, where they might pay for your flight, but when you get there, you're not making much money. All right, so you've just got to be a bit careful of that kind of thing. Can be tricky to get a work visa. Again, Costa Rica, most people go in there and they work on tourist visas. There is a lots of freelance work. Okay, lots of freelance work. That means finding students and getting students to quite often find teachers. They like to do one-on-one classes or two-on-one classes. You can do that. You can make a bit of money. Quite often that's cash in hand work. There's lots of freelance work available. And of course, Costa Rica has many beautiful exotic destinations to go to that you might want to look at. So definitely on the list, Costa Rica. I would love to go work there for a bit. Right, Ecuador, back down to sort of a destination you might not have thought of. So Ecuador is somewhere which there is quite a bit of a TEFL industry going on, but it's not generally on people's lists. And that might work in your favor if you're sort of newly qualified or you don't have much experience, because it might be that there's less competition for jobs and you can sort of go there. Ecuador is very relaxed on qualifications and experience. Even if a country doesn't require you to have a degree, you might see jobs advertised in parts of South America. Ecuador doesn't tend to do that as much. So, they tend to be they tend to sort of say, as long as you're enthusiastic, as long as we like you, as long as you're happy, you're good with the students, we don't really care about your degree, that kind of thing. Oh, you haven't got much experience, but you've got a good rapport about you. You interview quite well. Come have a job. So it might be somewhere to think about if you're sort of at that newly started part of your career. Ecuador does have quite low cost of living and start-up costs for sure. So you might find that you can fly over there and you can get yourself going. You can rent out a flat, that kind of thing, quite cheaply. But the wages are also low. A lot of the countries in Central South America, you don't tend to save much money. It does tend to be that you sort of live within your means, and you can maybe put back about a couple of $100 a month or something like that if you're very, very lucky. But a lot of people do spend all the money that they earn. Again, most work is for those already in country. You won't see jobs advertised really for Ecuador. Right, Brazil. Now, I've spent a lot of time in Brazil and I really liked it. It's a good place. I've never worked there, but I have spent a little bit of time there seeing friends and that kind of thing. And obviously it's massive, Brazil. And there's big difference from the coast to the south to sort of Brasilia in the middle and some of the cities in the north. It is a popular destination due to its size, and it's due to sort of the different things that you can do there. There is work in the major cities. There's not a huge amount of work in some of the more off the track places. But, Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Brasilia, there's sort of lots of work in these major cities. Again, private schools, language schools, that kind of thing. You can also get freelance work. There's got quite a big exam taking industry there. So, if you could get into that and you could sort of help someone to get through an IELTS test or a Cambridge test or a Trinity test, you can probably get a bit of money there, that sort of thing. So you could go work for college and then also or school and also do a bit of that on the side. Now, if you are going to do it into freelance, and I've had this with my online students, Brazilian students tend to be quite relaxed at paying. They tend to be quite relaxed about not turning up when they said they would turn up. So if you're going to go down the freelance route, be a bit careful of Brazilian students, get money up front, or tell them, you're only going to wait 10 minutes. And if they're not there after 10 minutes, you're off, going to keep 50% of the money, something like that. The visa situation in Brazil is tricky. And the reason being is that you had to, and I think you still do, if you want to get a full work visa, you have to be able to prove that a Brazilian person with a Brazilian passport can't do your job, which is, almost impossible. So the country is quite welcoming in terms of tourism, but it's not really welcome in terms of people coming to work there. However, like as I said about Argentina, place like that, you can go in on a tourist visa and you can get work like that, cash in hand. You can get freelance students like that, but again, you're on a tourist visa. Your legal situation is a bit tricky. Also, some of the major cities could be expensive. I think Brazil is more expensive than you think it would be, especially if you're going to go down to the tourist destinations or want to live in the tourist parts of the cities. Just something to be aware of. All right, now, place that I would love to go is Colombia. And Colombia has had a pretty crazy past, sort of in the 1980s, early 1990s, and then sort of through to the end of sort of the early 2000s. You know, it was a big old period of craziness. And I think there's been Netflix series made about it. But over the last 10 years, the TEFL industry has really got bigger in Colombia. It's a big growing economy and lots of people are wanting to learn TEFL. There is a big focus on business English within Colombia, and lots of people want to learn business English. Lots of companies want to sell their products abroad, and that's the sort of thing you can get involved in. And so if that's your sort of thing that you like teaching, Colombia could be the place for you. Really friendly students with a relaxed attitude. I've taught a few Colombians when I've worked at universities in the UK, and they've been lovely. I've really, really enjoyed being around them, hearing their opinions, how they take in other people's opinions and actually listen to others. I found that really good. And they are very relaxed and very calm. You know, they don't really get stressed too much. Low wage, but low cost of living to go alongside it. So again, you're not really going to expect to make a load of money there, well, to save a load of money, but you will have enough money coming in to cover your lifestyle there. Right, some of my final thoughts before I get to these great questions, which I can see coming up here. Some Latin America final thoughts. Now, you have to be happy with relaxed rules and relaxed students. You know, if you want super serious students who are going to sort of hang on your every word, who are going to always be on time, who are always going to get their homework in, that kind of thing. And if that's the only way you want to teach, go to Asia. If you're a bit calmer with the rules and, you know, you can sort of deal with a bit of sort of admin problems taking a while, if you're quite happy with students that, you know, are going to roll in a little bit late or say they have to leave a bit early or, you know, a bit not concentrating, then Latin America and its various other places, Central South America, would probably suit you quite well. It's really suitable for someone backpacking or a couple backpacking. You know, you go to Argentina, you with a bit of money, you want to support your money to then move on to Brazil, do a bit of work in Buenos Aires, find somewhere cheap to live, the two of you, something like that, work on a tourist visa, get some money coming in, go to Brazil, see a bit of Brazil, do the same again in Brazil, do that. Then you go up to maybe Chile or somewhere, or back to Uruguay, somewhere like this. Very, very suitable for someone backpacking. And it's a really good appeal to it. Okay. But because of the visa situation, have a contingency plan. So if you're in Buenos Aires and you can't find any work for some strange reason, or the economy's crashed or something like that, you need to get out, make sure you got a bit of money behind you to do it. I think probably with all Central South, well, I mean, everywhere you go, you shouldn't really go without a bit of money or at least a credit card to get you out of trouble. But don't go there expecting there's going to be a load of work and that you're going to get a full-time job like that. Latin America really isn't that sort of thing. It's quite relaxed and there's not a huge amount of like confirmed work going on. So, you know, someone might say, yeah, actually, do you know what? I've got some work for you next week. And you go, okay, great. And then you come back next week and go, actually, do you know what? No, I'm really sorry. I haven't got any work for you. That sort of thing is a little bit more common in Central South America than it is in the rest of the world. So have a plan in case that does go wrong. Do big research on the cost of living. I spoke about this in a webinar where I talk about sort of your startup costs and what you'll need in order to go to a country. So that's worth looking at, but definitely do some research on the cost of living. And don't expect to save money. Don't think you're going to come out of Latin America with a load of money in the bank. You're not. If that's your thing, then look at the Middle East. But which I've done webinars about the Middle East as well. Don't expect to just save money and, you know, go home and be able to buy loads of things when you're home. You'll make enough money to live well, but you're not going to make much money to save. So that's just something to be aware of. Great. I think that's the last bit of my slide. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get to some of these great questions that have been coming in. Please do get your questions in. Hi, Tim. Hi, David. Hi, Rick. Hi, Daniel. Hi, Claudia. Hi, everyone that's saying hello to me. Thank you very much. Good to see you. Right. Any knowledge of what the students are like generally? So I quite like, I've taught a lot of South American and Central Americans. They're some of my favorite students to teach. They are not shy, and I'm not a big fan of shy students. So I like students that are opinionated. I like students that can talk and are not afraid to talk, and they talk a lot in their own language, and they're, you know, quite happy to sort of fight for themselves verbally for their opinions and that kind of thing. I like that. Flip side of that is they're not overly great at writing. So, you know, I would definitely, if I was to go there as a freelance teacher, I'd probably concentrate on the writing side of things. Because I think that's where you could probably make a difference and probably charge a slightly bit more money if you're an expert in teaching to the IELTS writing test, the Trinity writing test, whatever it might be. But generally, the students are good fun. Generally, students are good. Yeah, really like them. If you've got any other opinion about this question, great question, David, please do put it in the chat. There's loads of TEFL country guides that are going in. Links, they're really worth checking out. Hi, Tim. Right. This is an interesting one. So every country tends to have its own sort of limit on how far it will go. Some countries do say flat, no, any sort of criminal conviction, you can't get a work visa. Some even say that for tourist visas. I've got a friend who a British guy who tried to go to America and he couldn't get a tourist visa. So you got to research that yourself, Tim, just to make sure. If you're going in on a tourist visa, it's slightly better than if you were to go in on a work visa. So going on a tourist visa, they might not care as much as if you're going in for the work visa. And there are plenty of places in Central South America where you can work on a tourist visa. David, you're going to get me leaving my wife and daughter and not caring about my mortgage and just going off on my own again. What country would I want to work in next? So, right. I've visited Korea, but I've never worked in Korea. And that is somewhere where I have thought about going to go teach. Look, it's different for me now. I'm 44 years old. I've got a wife, I've got a daughter. She goes to a local school. We're very happy here. If I was on my own, I would be off like that. That's what I would say, David. So, and I'm trying to think of places where I'm not sort of thinking about what my schools my daughter would go to, because that would really sort of change the things. So if we're looking at Asia, it would be Korea, I think, definitely. You can get some short-term contracts in Japan. I've lived and worked in Japan. I sometimes think about something like that would be fun. For a company called Westgate, that's worth checking out if you do fancy short-term contracts. Then I sort of sometimes think about going and chasing a bit of money in the Middle East. Somewhere like Saudi Arabia, I could quite easily go there, work for a year and make a bit of money and come back and add that to the pension pot and retire a bit earlier. If I was to go down the fun route, I do quite like the idea of going and being a backpacker around Central and South America, just doing a term here, work, go on to the next country. I feel like that would be a lot of fun. But yeah, probably if you were to give me a job where I'd end up anywhere tomorrow, it'd probably be Korea, probably, just because I love Korean food and Korean students are quite good. What about you? Where would you go, David? Let me know, and I'll tell you whether I agree with that as a good TEFL destination. Daniel, most of the students here are quite talkative. Yeah, I like that. I mean, so Daniel's from Venezuela. He said hello earlier. Daniel, what's the work situation like in Venezuela? Is there quite a lot of, because obviously it's in the news a lot at the moment for the politics. Is there quite a lot of work out there at the moment? I've had some Venezuelan students, and they are fantastic. They've been really good fun at universities. Not so many in the last few years, but definitely sort of 10, 15 years ago, there's quite a bit. There used to be also quite a few jobs advertised in Venezuela. Let's hope Venezuela sorts out its economy. Then there'll be loads of work advertised in Venezuela. Haley, if finding work whilst backpacking, will there be options for both part-time and full-time? Yeah, I think so. So, right, in Central and South America, and look, there's also Europe is quite a good place for backpacking if you've got a EU passport. Basically, you're looking for, if that's the sort of thing you fancy doing, you're really looking for countries which are happy to give short-term contracts or termly contracts, really. And they tend to be the countries that don't pay for your flights, don't pay for your accommodation. So, you'd go to somewhere and then you'd find a bit of work, and you don't have to work for one place. You could do part-time. You might find a school that says we've only got work for you in the mornings. Great. You might find another school that says we only have work for you in the evenings, and you might fancy that. A bit of work in the mornings, one school, a bit of work in the another school. You might also find lots of freelance students as well. Yeah. They definitely, there's definitely things to be done. So yeah, but a school might say to you, look, actually, do you know what? We want someone that's going to teach 25 hours a week. Are you up for that? You might be, you might not be. I think this is the sort of thing you would really be able to sort of pick and choose a bit whilst backpacking. Yeah, for sure. Donna, right, interesting question, this one. Now, I have worked abroad with lots of single women, and as far as I know, most of them have had a pretty good experience wherever they have gone. Did have a little bit of problems in Sri Lanka. Some of the people did, but generally, on the whole, I think everyone had a really good experience. Crime rate in a lot of countries, if you stick to the rules and if you don't go off the beaten track late at night, that kind of thing, crime rate in a lot of countries is really low. And a lot of the crime doesn't happen towards tourists or Western people. Now, how would you know it was safe? I think probably just Google, YouTube is your answer to that kind of thing. Find a blog page of someone that has worked in China, find a blog page, a video YouTube channel of someone that's teaching in Korea, and see what they say about it and contact them, But saying that, I have never been a victim myself of crime. I've never had any of the other TEFL ladies that I've worked with say, well, this really bad thing happened to me. Now, it doesn't mean that doesn't happen, but it probably happens as much in London as it does in Tokyo. Well, it definitely happens more in London than it does in Tokyo. I picked a bad example there. Definitely probably happens. The crime that you get into have problems with in London, where you go to places where it's a little bit rougher, it's a little bit darker, late at night, that kind of thing. There's not as much street lights. That can be problems in London, and you do that sort of thing in Phnom Penh. You shouldn't probably be there. I got held up at gunpoint once in Africa, and that was because it was 3 a.m. I was walking down to the streets I shouldn't have really gone down. I blame myself for that. So I can't 100% say this is a rule, Donna, but I think a bit of research and you'll be fine. And honestly, the majority of places are really, really, really safe that I've worked in. David, you're thinking of Kuwait, Colombia, Thailand, and Taiwan. So, well, you got 4, very different destinations there at the moment there. I have never been to Kuwait. I know plenty of people that have made a bit of money in Kuwait. Spoken a bit about Colombia. I will be on my list for sure. Now, Thailand, I do love Thailand a lot. Thailand is a great place to base yourself to see lots of other places. You know, it's cheap flights out of Bangkok to fly to Korea, to fly to China, that kind of thing. It's also quite easy bus journeys, so you could bus it to to Cambodia, to Vietnam. You can bus it to Myanmar, I think, as well. Myanmar's a bit tricky at the moment. There's also loads of things to see in Thailand. There's also loads of things to see in Colombia. There's also loads of things to see in Taiwan. I'm not sure about Kuwait. There's so much to see. Thailand, I think if you're an early TEFLer, Thailand will probably be on my list. Taiwan, again, I've never been to Taiwan, but I know plenty of people that have and really, really enjoyed it. You also see quite a lot of jobs advertised in Taiwan. And, you know, it does look like a fun place to go to, for sure. But probably if I was new to TEFL, I would choose Thailand out of all those, but that's just me. If you need a bit of cash, go to Kuwait. No problem, Donna. I hope I answered your question. Thank you, everyone. That's lovely talking about the crime, but probably best not to get into that too much. Daniel, hi. Things are upside down in Venezuela, but teach online from here is great. Interesting. There you go. So that's something I should have said. If you are going down the backpacking route, you know, why not supplement it with teaching online as well? As long as you can find a stable internet connection wherever you are, which you can do, you know, that sort of thing can do that. There are a lot of Venezuelans living abroad who need to learn English. Fantastic. So you're teaching Venezuelans that are living abroad who need to learn English. Look, I hope that's working out for you, Daniel. And I hope you're doing well from that. So Latin America is a great place to go to. Lots of fun destinations, lots of really interesting, you know, obviously you got the big old mountains, you got the beaches, you got, you know, rainforests, you got big metropolis cities. There's loads going different destinations to go to in Central and South America, which which I think is part of the charm. Go for it, but just be a bit careful in terms of have a little bit of money saved before you go, that kind of thing. But we have loads of guides on our website. If you go to tefl.org, go to the top, there's a search, a magnifying glass, click on that, type in Colombia, you will find a guide to Colombia. You know, type in Brazil, you will find a guide to Brazil where you can get lots more information and more statistics than I can give you right now. I hope you enjoyed that webinar. Thank you very, very much for viewing. Please do let us know if you enjoyed it. Please let us know if you didn't enjoy it. Please also let us know what sort of things you might want to see in some of these webinars. We've done lots of them over the years. They're all available on YouTube. They're on our Facebook page. I'm not sure how you can find them on LinkedIn, but I'm sure you can quite easily. But definitely there's loads and loads of them on YouTube. That's probably the easiest way to watch us. Thank you very much. If you need more information, contact us on our Facebook group. Contact us on our website, tefl.org. Someone will answer your question and they will get back to you as soon as we can. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world.